Hello there. My name's Tim Thomas, former mixed martial artist and Australian Special Forces. I have a wonderful gift to give everybody on the Prosperity Online show with Prosper. I'm going to show you my party trick on how to completely relax your body in 2 to 3 breaths. Stay tuned.
Now, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, where we dive into stories that transform lives. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we're joined by Tim Thomas, a former Special Forces commando who's traded combat zones for calm zones. Now, Tim, welcome to the show.
Oh, Prosper, I love that. Trading combat for calm. I'm going to make a t-shirt out of that. I love it.
Absolutely. Well, before we get started, obviously, if people are watching in America, they would expect me to say thank you for your service. I mean, you did do, remarkable work in the time that you were in the special forces. So we will jump into that and have a look at what that looked like and what it means now for you as a person. And for those that are watching right now, I want you to maybe imagine or maybe ask yourself this question. Have you ever tried, maybe when you're asleep and you can't, you've got insomnia and things of that nature, and you tried counting sheep, but you ended up naming them instead? Well, today's guest doesn't just help you sleep, but he actually, helps you battle insomnia and also everything else that comes along with it by helping you breathe your stress away anytime, anywhere. So many of us are in business, we're parents, we're trying to juggle every and anything based on what is being thrown at us, either from family, friends, social media, and it just takes our breath away half of the time. So Tim has made it his mission to bring that all back, and he's on a mission to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, and live fuller. So stay tuned as we uncover how Tim's journey from the battlefield to a happier existence and changing lives one breath at a time came into being. Now, Tim, I could go on and talk about things I'm not even qualified to talk about. Tell us a little bit about your journey and what it was like being a Special Forces commander.
Well, speaking to my time of service, the only thing I had my deployments to Afghanistan, East Timor, but the only thing really unique about my service, Prosper, was in 2004, the Australian government, first time in Australian history, started a DRSF scheme, direct recruiting into special forces, where civilian personnel, if you pass the whole bag of testing, mental aptitude, IQ, physical, obviously, you could then do the special forces selection. Previous to this, you had to spend 2 years in a regular battalion before you could even apply. So, and I was the oldest allowable age at 30. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it, but there was a part of me that says, Tim, if you don't do this, you might regret it. And I've got a real big thing about thinking about the things that I would regret most and then using them as a way to drive me forward to what I really want. Because sometimes I'm not clear on what I want, but I'm very clear on what I don't want. And a big part of me when I was in my 20s said, well, you've got a concept of time of, 20 odd years. Did that concept of time seem like a lot? And I'm like, no, it seemed like click my fingers. And so I'm going to click my fingers again and I'm going to be 50. So what would the 50-year-old version of Tim say to the 25-year-old version of Tim? And that was, well, you can live with all sorts, Tim. You've shown that you've lived with not a lot of money. You've shown that you've lived with not a lot of people thinking not much of you, but you can't live with regret. so what would you really regret getting to 50 not doing? And at the time it was get into professional fighting, which was just starting in the 90s. So before it was mixed martial arts, it was no rules fighting, kind of not really legal in sort of these underground biker bars back in the 90s, and you could actually smoke in these biker bars. But the point I'm trying to make is, out of that, I've learnt to move myself forward using a combination of something that I want and something that I don't want. They did a really interesting experiment, Prosper, on this mouse to measure how much it could pull forward. So they put a piece of cheese in front of this mouse and it pulled like 300 neutrons. And then they put the smell of a cat in there and it pulled like 1,200 neutrons. So to me, if you can really drive to the surface that which you don't want, that is super powerful juice to drive you forward. And it's quite true, because before I did Special Forces selection, I was blessed to have a boss that was an absolute a-hole. And some days on selection, I'm doing selection because I want to be an Australian Special Forces commando. Yeehaw, right? Other days I'm doing it and I'm thinking, if I stop this, I'm going to have to go back to that old job, which has got that a-hole in it, and to hell with that. That is not happening. You know, so there's real power to be had in knowing what completely repels you as well. So getting into the Special Forces was on the back of, well, I'd probably regret it if I didn't do it. I wasn't completely clear on it, but I felt like I'd regret if I didn't do it. So I had to go. And like I said, everyone told me I was too old at 30. And I picked up the nickname Old Man Tomo. But what I saw was that there is a group hypnosis around aging. And if I let other people say, hey, at 30, you can't do this, then I would put that into every cell in my body. And I might have mentioned earlier, I'm dyslexic, so I see things in patterns. And the pattern I saw was, you know, I've never actually been 30 before. I've never actually aged before. This is the first time I've done it. So shouldn't I be the one deciding what I can and can't do at 30, right? So hearing what other people had to say and understanding that that's them regurgitating the group hypnosis of, at 30, you can't do certain things. So I thought, no, F that. Here's my boundary. That's where you stop. Here's where I start. And that sort of led me into something that was typically a younger man's world. But there was a lot of resistance getting into the military because, like I said, you had to spend 2 years in a regular infantry battalion before you could even apply. And here was these guys jumping straight in and jumping the queue. So we were met with a lot of resistance. They really tried to stop the scheme. Of the 70 guys that started, there was plenty of guys younger, fitter, faster, stronger than I was. But I was in the final group of less than 15 that actually got through. So making it in was probably one of the toughest things I've ever done. Not just on a physical level. I was starting a family. My wife was pregnant at the time, and my boy was due to be born on Special Forces selection. And they told me, they said, listen, this is Special Forces selection. You can either see your kid being born or you can do selection. You can't do both. And that was super hard. And I feel like I'm tangenting here a bit, but I really had to see things from my son's perspective. I couldn't see it from my own. I said, what does that boy really need? You know, does he need dad physically there at his birth, or does he need a dad with a job? Right. Because up until that point, I had no tertiary education. You know, I was physically fit from the back of, you know, martial arts, but there was no work around that saw that as a valuable asset. And so I saw this job as a chance, my you know, with my thinking back then, my one chance to get above minimum wage, you know. And so, you know, that's what happened. I did selection, you know, fortunately, you know, I was successful, and I felt like I was able to provide, you know, for my, you know, growing family.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for obviously having chosen that. It was a difficult decision nonetheless, and you chose what was right for you at that particular time. But let's go back a little bit, because you said you went into this time of special forces at the age of 30. And
Yep.
prior to that, you sort of hinted to a life of, one, obviously you are upfront about the dyslexia, and then two, having bosses that never really understood you, or you didn't like working with them, so to speak. Maybe paint to us a picture of maybe the time of your school days. What was that like, having that sort of you know uh
Yeah.
condition
Well,
that you mentioned?
back in the day, in the 70s and 80s, the technical term for dyslexia is you're stupid.
Mm.
Okay, and I got told that so many times. The problem was I ended up believing it, and I believed it so thoroughly that I thought, well, I'm never going to understand this stuff, so I might as well have some fun. So I became the disruptive one in the class. And I mean, when I look back on it, it's not a big deal, but it was a big deal at the time. I had from ages 13 to 15 chronic, not just one or two pimples, but chronic acne. You know, one of those poor souls that had them, down the cheeks, down the neck, down the forehead, down the back of the neck, everywhere. Kids used to always be chanting pizza face," and my whole day was positioned around people not seeing me. So I'd always position myself with, if there was a window in a room, I'd try and be with that window behind me so they couldn't actually see the details. You know what I mean? And because I just saw, and as a young man, it made a really big impact out on me, where I'd be having a conversation, with a girl or a guy, and at some point their eyes would wander down to my cheeks, and they'd sort of start making a bit of a face, you know, and that went on for a considerable amount of time. And I'll tell you something that really freed me out of this, because I believe that. And this is what I say to veterans: you might not think you're special, but I bet you've been through some shit. All right. And it's our job, and no one likes dealing with shit, but our job is to turn that shit into fertilizer. And the stinkiest shit, the stuff that you don't want to touch, becomes the absolute best fertilizer. Okay. And I didn't know that, but I was given this shit sandwich as a 14-year-old kid when finally the nurse at school realized there was this thing going on with Tim, took this medication, started clearing up, and I'm looking in the mirror and my pimples are starting to clear. And I'm like, that's good, but now I've got to work on my hair. And that's it. Honestly, Prosper, felt like an axe hitting me in the forehead, saying, Tim, this stops here. If you don't learn to love yourself, zits and all, you're always going to find something wrong with yourself. Because once you fix your hair, you're going to fix your clothes, fix this, fix it. You got to love yourself, warts and all, right frickin' now. This ends here. And that revelation on its own, I think, set me up to be able to kind of run off my own compass to a better degree. Having that sort of realization that if I feed the part of me that sees faults, that's just going to be growing this fault finding, very easily influenced, person. And looking back on my, I would have been 14 or 15. I'm super proud of that little kid, for coming to that, decision, because it was that sort of sovereignty that allowed me to choose powerfully about what I really wanted, not what everyone else was kind of pushing me to do.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for that tidbit of information, because Tim, so many people, they're just wondering, and they let the world or whatever marketing tell them what the next thing they should be focusing on is. And that's how a lot of businesses make a lot of money. We were joking about that a little bit earlier on. But it is an industry really for just about every aspect of our life that benefits from people not actually knowing and having the kind of clarity that you had at 14. But things like that don't just happen. Do you think there was something that was already permeating or percolating in your life that made you realize that? Because any teenage boy would have gone for the hair option just so they don't go through what they were going through in the past.
I think what sculpted me was my father worked with First Nations on a very remote area on the far west coast of South Australia. And they had this unspoken connection to the earth themselves and anyone that was accepted into that circle. And this was back in the 70s and 80s when there was no government funding, no attention, and all the colourful language under the sun was used every day on a regular basis. And I know my folks were sort of in this in between world. A lot of the white people in the area didn't want to hang out with them, and it's not that the Aboriginals didn't like them, but they didn't trust them. And so, about the 3 or 4 year mark, they realised that Dad's a good guy, and Dad actually was smart enough to go to some of the elders and say, "How do I? What's the best thing for me to do?" And the elders said, "Just go visit people in their homes, spend time with them in their homes." And that's what he did. He just spent time with people in their homes. I was with them, and I hung out and all that sort of stuff. I feel, and we'd go hunting together. My favourite food growing up was sleepy lizard, blue tongue lizard, shingleback, okay, witchetty grubs, kangaroo, wombat, all right, and that sort of connection to something more than just the physical. There was something unspoken and intangible, and even, I even have a bit of a problem with welcome to country, but not for the reason most people think. Because what a welcome to country classically is giving the people that have the connection to this land a real deep sense of belonging and bringing newcomers into that deep sense of belonging. And I don't know how that can be done with words. You kind of need to take your shoes off, connect to the earth, and tap into their energetic field. And again, this is kind of crazy talk that most people don't understand, but the best way I can put it is that when you've got a really sacred place on this earth, how can you explain to somebody that just walking around barefoot on it can give you the feeling that's better than winning a lotto? That energetic reciprocation from just walking barefoot on a piece of ground that's super special to you, it's not seen, it's not valued. And this is where a lot of stuff gets lost, because us in the Western world have this, as I see it, intergenerational trauma attached to what other people think about us. Okay? And I'm sure in some point in our evolution that, if the tribe disagreed with one particular person, they were kicked out of the tribe and then they died. So let's lock in, get along with everybody. Okay? But now it's kind of morphed into this thing where we're just binding ourselves in these invisible chains and we're squeezing out the life force that we're supposed to be tapping into. And the Indigenous have this amazing, unseen, unspoken connection that they're not going to bother trying to explain to you if you're not speaking their language. But if you've spent time, and I got it from just being blessed as a kid, you've sort of got that open energy, and then you can sort of absorb it in without the spoken words. You're just having fun with it. And then when I left that space and I saw the vacuum of it, what life was like without that, that's when I started to see the need for that, And I would say a lot of the problems we have in the Western world is because we are lacking the sense of connection that the Indigenous have so powerfully.
You're absolutely right, because obviously fish don't see the water that they swim in, and neither do we see the air that we breathe. but what we're breathing in is pixel or dust from stars or anything else that is up there. Apparently, trees emit oxygen, breathe in carbon dioxide. So it's like a symbolic dance of everything that comes along to make us who we are. I mean, if you just look at your world right now, if you eat a banana, it emanates as your nose. Like all of those things happening
Yeah.
all at once. So I can only imagine, but I digress. Now, you were going
No, that was good
hunting.
though. I love that. And thanks for pointing it, because the thing is, you're talking about all these points of connection that are always going on. They're beautiful, they're wonderful, they're awesome. They fill you with awe. But if I've been told that my whole neighborhood might think a certain way around me, then that stops me. That creates a disconnect from this beautiful world that's all around us. Or if something comes through from mainstream media that tells me I need to be worried about the price of eggs, then that stops me seeing this beautiful dance all around me, you know? And so in many ways, healers don't really change who you are. They just get you to connect with what is, and that mostly means removing the blockages that are there. So me as a 14-year-old kid, I saw a blockage to a connection that I believe, if you ask me why, no one's asked me that question, but if I was to look at it, having that deep sense of connection and then feeling the pain of it being interrupted, and then me going, no, this stops freaking here, man. I don't know what the world's going to look like, but this stops here.
Absolutely, absolutely. I absolutely love all of that, and the exposure that you had at such a tender age. You know, some kids would have been, like running around chasing whatever was the flavor of the month at that particular time, but you chose what you chose. So this also then explains, because if you were going on hunting expeditions, that meant you were out in the bush, really experiencing, connecting, knowing what is food, what is not food, and everything just seemed to work for you. Now, were those events for you exploring expeditions, or did you actually take that as a classroom?
Hanging out with my Aboriginal mates was just awesome fun, because what I liked doing was I liked physically fighting, and my Indigenous mates, if they liked you, they'd fight with you. Okay, a real physical test. Okay, if they didn't like you, they'd pick something up and throw it at you. Okay, and that made sense to me in my sort of dyslexic world. It was just perfectly clear. And then when we moved from that area, and I'm grabbing up all these white kids, they're like, no, 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 you can't fight with people. So I felt like there was a bit of an expression denied me. So surprise, surprise, when I get into my later years, I get into professional fighting, because that was the frequency with which my body really resonated with.
I like that, because the hunting would have made it really easy for you to navigate your way as a special forces cadet. And also the fighting would have explained the fight clubs and things of that nature that you went on and did. But then there's something that you also mentioned that really, really got me paying attention. That mouse experiment,
Oh
where
yeah.
you say that people would rather would go for something that is pulling them towards them. Sort of, there's that whole push and pull. Not a lot of people realize that, and maybe you can explain that in the way that you now view the world again, because
Sure.
I think that's very important.
And that's an excellent question without blowing smoke. You have to realize there's a whole economy based on repulsion. Okay. You do not want this happening to you, so let me be your savior. You do not want people thinking you're less of a human because your face is a certain way, your car is a certain way. You do not want that. Okay. And so fear and intrepidation, the marketers have figured out that that's how they can push people in a particular direction. Now, it doesn't really bring people closer to that which they really want, but they've noticed there's a lot more energy in somebody to move away from pain than to move towards something, you know. And in that void of I'm just moving away from pain, it's very uncomfortable. And the world we currently live in, there's another economy based on us feeling comfortable. Okay, there's no shortage of doom scrolling. There's no shortage of comfort foods that aren't healthy for you. There's no shortage of
the comfort zone.
classic example is I couldn't sleep, right? So I lost 6 years of my life to pharmaceuticals. I didn't know breath work. I didn't know my own sovereign power that breath work could alkalize my neural pathways, kick out all my intrusive thoughts, heal my body that's full of injuries after being in the special forces. You know, so your own sovereign power has this is the ultimate disruptive technology, and there's a whole economy based on us being tired enough to believe bullshit. To believe that we're not in control of our state, so you do need that coffee, you do need that energy drink, you do need that pill to sleep. You know, you do need to drink. I used to drink a lot of alcohol because I was incredibly uncomfortable, and those substances made me feel good for a period of time, you know? So I hope that answers your question.
You're absolutely right, because what I wanted us to get to is a part where so many people have a lot of stress and they're trying to get away from it. But what they then use and the tools that are made available to them are usually not in their best of interest. Now,
yeah, no, and you're right. Because here's the thing, the Chinese have got an ancient saying that says, honor the seeker, meaning honor the person who's seeking information, because information is real power, okay? And when you're connected to real power, you don't need a resale. You've got that. You've got ownership over that, okay? And it's not until, Prosper, people have a chronic injury where they realize we're not in an age of information. We're in an age of marketing. Big difference. Okay, first 6 pages of Google, marketers. Loudest voice in the room, marketers. And when people are hurting, and they've often neglected looking after themselves for a period of time, so when they need help, they really need help straight away, largest voice in the room, the most common voice around are marketers. Okay, and marketers, they're genius. They can speak the words, your unspoken words that are like rocks around your heart. You're feeling alone, isolated, and here is this person. Oh my gosh, speaking the words that I've always wanted to hear. Shut up and take my money. Okay? And they promise power, they give you a taste of it, but their goal is resales. So years will go by, dollars will leave your pocket, you're kind of getting something, but not really. And these vulnerable people end up blaming themselves. And then it's very hard for them to ever try seeking again, because they can honestly say, I know, like the space I've come to through this is the veteran space, but it's not uncommon. This happens across the board. When people are seeking healing, they're very vulnerable, and you know, healers are like coffee shops. They're 2 in every corner, but you got to work really hard to find a good one. Okay, the one that really suits you. So a lot of people give up before that. And to be honest, in my experience, 90% of them do the opposite of healing. They actually make it worse, because no one's told a psychologist that the trauma goes down deeper than the words can reach. Because we're dealing with a very ancient system here, Prosper. This system, before we were sentient and, you know, putting paintings on rock walls, before we were speaking, we were feeling, we were dancing, we were moving. There's a whole lot of wiring here that the spoken word can't access. So the guys that really understand their stuff know that the body keeps the score. Bessel van der Kolk wrote a book, Body Keeps the Score. It was the only book that actually showed that the trauma is locked in the body. Blah, blah, blahing doesn't cut it all the time. And so people, psychologists that are really good at what they do, have a physically integrated therapy session that allows that to be unlocked. I had to search 7 years to find a psychologist that actually did what they said they're going to do, and that's actually bring me peace. And I'm going to say this now, and this will be quite a bold claim. If this healer can't heal you in less than 4 sessions, they don't know what the problem is. Because if you really know where the problem is, it can be alleviated in far less time. And that's the good news about the healing journey. When you find the right healer, healing takes like 5% of the time you think it will. Unfortunately, finding the right healer takes you like 500% more effort than you think it's going to take, because they all advertise, but it's not an age of information, it's an age of marketing. And when you do find a healer, here's what's going to happen. They realize they're human and their energy is not enough for two. So they're not going to make wild promises. But what they've developed, what they've mastered, is a connection to something super powerful. And it might have taken them 10 years to get that connection, but they can do it for you in far less time. And once you establish that connection for yourself, they'll connect you. There's no resales. You've got it, man. You know, sure, you can hang out, but it's more a case of connecting people to something super powerful so they can access it whenever they want. So that's why I get excited when I can connect people to the power underneath their own skin, because that then disrupts all the noise out there that exploits us not knowing just how awesome our physical bodies are.
Now, Tim, ndinotenda zvikuru nezvauri kundiudza nekuda kwekuti zvauri kundiudza zvinonakidza. Now I can see you really trying to reach out to listen to what I'm saying. What I was just saying is thank you so much for what you're telling me. And the reason why I said it in my language was so that you can validate what you just told me. Language is just that, whether you understand it or not. But as human beings, we talk at a visceral level. And just because you don't understand what I just said doesn't mean that I haven't communicated. So can you imagine if other people are just saying things out there just to wax lyrical, and you're not understanding what they're saying, and it's not helping you do, and have a happier existence. Now, maybe you can share with us a moment when you actually realize that breathwork could be an actual lifeline, not just for you, but for countless others.
Sure. Well, it wasn't mystical, my discovery of breathwork. I was fatigued as hell in Afghanistan, beyond tired, beyond hurting. I'd lost mates. We're outside the wire. I thought I was going to die. And you never got anything called 8 hours of sleep. You might be able to get horizontal for a bit on a bit of dirt, whatever. And then you're always on the go, always on the move. But there's something that the military teach us. They hijack one of the powers of breath work to help us shoot better. Okay, so what they get you to do when you take a sight picture looking down a rifle, they get you to take a deep breath in and then let it out slowly, because then that stills the body and you can take a more accurate shot. Okay, so I'm in this state where I have kind of given up, thought I was going to die. And I'm like, Tim, it's like you've only got 2 cents worth of energy. What's the point? And then a few minutes later, there's this voice that says, Tim, if you've only got 2 cents, you better invest that wisely. So as I'm laying down in the dirt, I would stop my desire to just give into fatigue and try and sleep. I would focus on my non-dominant thumb. And I'd picture a little pinhole at the top of that, and I'd picture myself trying to breathe through that pinhole, like a really sucking it in. And eventually that thumb would somehow magically not just relax, but illuminate. Like in my mind's eye, it was like I could see inside my thumb, and there was all these illuminated nerve endings, pathways, and all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, that's cool. And then I focused on my index finger, breathed into that, and that illuminated. My pointer, my index finger, my ring finger, my pinky. And then I drew that through my whole arm and into my body. And I noticed just by doing that, I would wake up with $1.50 worth of energy. And I'm like, that's interesting. I only had 2 cents and I woke up with $1.50. And so then the next night I would compound that. I'd do more breath work trying to turn this body somehow into light. And that sort of kept layering up till I got to this point where I realized, and this happens in anyone's journey of discovery and alignment to, ultimate truth, which is ultimate power. And this stuff has, been around longer than us. It's just we have an opportunity to discover it in the 70 or 80 years that we have, right? And I just discovered that this thing just kept on giving me more, but there comes a point where it's not just good enough for you, because outside the war in Afghanistan, I was part of a team. And it didn't matter how good I was. If my team was having a bad day, I'm having a bad day. So then I'm like, well, how can I then use this energy to help them have a good day as well? So the focus needs to start on ourselves, but there comes a point where we need to turn it outside, where it naturally turns outside of ourselves to build others up around us. So I just noticed if I kept on dipping into my breath, I always had enough to spare and give others. And even if I didn't like the person, it made a lot of sense to have them in an empowered state, because, who do you want around you when good times turn bad? Absolutely. I personally think the world would do really well if we had like aliens attacking us, because then we'd go, you know what? We're all human. We have to work together. Like humans bond really quickly when there's an external threat, and it's like, I think you're picking up what I'm putting down. So the point I'm trying to make here is I discovered this thing called breathwork. I didn't know what it was. It just worked. And then when I get out, I had a cold sore. My buddy said, oh, you got a cold sore? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to spend $20 on lysine. And he goes, why do that? If you do this breathwork technique, you'll get rid of it. I'm like, breathwork technique? Get rid of a cold sore? Yeah, if it saves me $20. Anyway, I do it. It works. And I'm like, well, what else can this do? And so I became like a big fan of some mainstream, breathwork coaches. Wim Hof was one of them. I think looking at I think I've got like 13,000 rounds of breathwork in that space. But the thing that sent it home to me on the power of breathwork was I was in another war zone, and it wasn't Afghanistan. It was worse than Afghanistan. I'd just gotten divorced. It was during COVID. It was 2019, 2020. I'd lost house, home, all my money, regular access to kids. And I'm sleeping on the couch of my parents' living room. And you can bet at 2 a.m., my mind was going insane. And I'm about to do some form of self-harm, drugs, alcohol, who knows, right? And it's at that point I discovered something that if people can get right now, you're going to be well ahead of the game. And what I understood was that us and our human minds are like a garden in the way that whatever you water grows. Okay. And I was watering the weeds of stress, and they were growing till eyeballs popped out of them. They became sentient, and they could make conscious decisions that would feed them. And they were very aware of decisions that would starve them. Okay. So I knew as a breathwork practitioner that if I breathed a certain way, I would find peace. But these stress weeds in my head that I'd been watering knew that too, and they didn't want to be kicked out. So they kept me tied up in this ball of stress. And even though I knew I was supposed to breathe, it was like I couldn't. Like, honestly, it's like I couldn't breathe, even though that's the most natural thing. So like I said, I get up at 2 a.m. about to do myself some form of self-harm. But I look at my left thumb, Prosper, and I say to myself, Tim, you can take one breath. Take one fucking breath. And I drove it into my chest, went, oh shit, that works. Okay, take two. And I drove 2 fingers in my chest. Okay, this is working. Take 3, 4, 5, and finger after finger, breath after breath. I just kept doing it. Get to 5, get to 10, get to 15, and somewhere between 15 and 25, those stress weeds, they got kicked out. And the rest of my brain was like, thank fuck you kicked them out. This is working, Tim. Don't stop. And so, it was in my like worst of the worst scenario that breath work could actually give me peace and create reconnection to what I am and who I am. That gives me confidence. And I thought, well, if this really works, I've got to package it in such a way where anyone can access it anywhere. And that's where, my current company sort of sits. It came from that night of me just having that shit sandwich.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you so much for taking us through that, because so many people go through what you would have gone through, not to take away from your experience, but in their own way, they have these worlds that are seemingly telling them who to be and who to become, and they don't know how to discern good from evil. I remember as a kid, there used to be cartoons where you'd have like a little one that says, you go ahead and do that, and another one like a devil, so like an angel and a devil on both sides. And I don't think a lot of people are trained enough to be able to starve the wolf that they don't want in that particular scenario. How do you suggest people do that?
Well, firstly, being aware of it. So these things are very subtle. Okay, let's say you and I, we want to do some physical engagement, okay, exercise of some kind. There's always that part of your head that goes, you know what, let's not do this now. Let's do this later. Okay, let's look at your phone for a bit, because they know if they procrastinate you, they can build more of a wall to stop you doing it. So understand that the resistance you face inside of yourself is from a disempowered part of you that knows, it's aware enough that if you were to become physically empowered, they get kicked out. When you turn the lights on, the shadows flee. And they fight the hardest before they get kicked out, because they're fighting for their survival. So fear will often tell you you're going to die if you do that. Because essentially, and they're not lying, because part of you has to die to do this activity, because this disempowered part of you cannot exist in the same state as an energized, empowered part of you. So when you actually get the fullness of that, you start seeing that the last place you want to go to is often the first place you need to start. And I speak to physical discipline because right now, the world we're currently in is very comfortable. No one has to run if they don't want to, right? And it's not because we can't, it's not that we don't have enough gyms, it's not that we're not physically capable, but we don't see the need to be physically powerful. And in this vacuum, the gym world has said, well, to get people to train, we've got to use repulsion. Like not tell you what you want, but show you what you don't want. You don't want to be hated by everybody because you're not looking fit. You don't want a butt like that. You don't want clothes like that. I kind of think that the gym economy is based on how many mirrors they've got in there. Because if you're just doing it for what you can see, that is like taking your potential and reducing it down to 2%. Because if like a big shift people can have is, instead of going to the gym with an expectation, like I expect to lose weight, I expect to look a certain way, I'm doing this because I'm, not happy with myself. But if you trade your expectations for affirmations, like I value this physical vessel, I don't care what it looks like, but I'm going to value it with every single step. Every single step I'm doing on this treadmill is adding value, 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 value. And that's a massively different energy return from someone who's on there because my butt's no good. And every step is affirming my butt's no good. So when I work with people, I get them to forget about, I was literally telling this to my daughter this morning. I said, don't think shape of a body, think state, energetic state. because the shape may or may not come, but we can generate an energetic state today, like literally today, and we can be what I like to call energetic millionaires. And the world occurs very differently when you're in that energetic millionaire space where you've invested in yourself, you've got an abundance, you can be generous, people can take from you, that's okay. If someone takes $7.50 from me, that's fine. I'm going to make another $1,000,000 tomorrow. Because I've been that guy who only had $8. Someone took $7.50. That's wrong. I'm right. I'm going to revenge that guy for the next 3 years. And I've completely forgotten that I could make another $1,000,000 the next day. So what I feel like I might have.
You're right. You
I'm off topic here, but I
right.
hope you sort of. I'm painting a picture that you can see.
You're absolutely right there. Now, Tim, obviously, I'm just going to play devil's advocate here. We've already established there's the devil and the angel there. Breathing is one of those things that, I mean, if you're alive, you're breathing. All right. The first thing you do, depending on how people feel about this, but the first thing you do when you're told you're surviving in this realm is breathing. The last thing you do is breathing. Why would I need somebody to teach me what to do in order for me to survive?
Yeah, good point. In fact, the other week I had a high school student said, "I've been breathing my whole life. You can't tell me how to breathe," right? So I get it, right? And it surprises me how many professional athletes don't know how to actually breathe. So you really don't. This world doesn't really highlight the benefits of breathing until it comes into the problems of not breathing. Okay, if you're not breathing properly, you're not fully oxygenating your whole system. If you're not breathing properly, your whole system doesn't live as long. Okay. Conversely, if you are breathing correctly and are getting fully oxygenated, you live longer. But what do I tell somebody who's right here, right now saying, breathing, so what? If you're willing, because breathwork taps into an unspoken part of us. Okay, the breathwork ancient wiring outlives our sentient thoughts. So if inside someone's head you're like, this guy's full of shit, there's no words that I could say to change that. And I say, look, for no cost to you, I'm going to show you how in 3 breaths you can completely reset your system. Would that be of interest to you? Drop your stress levels from your body and mind in 3 breaths. If you're willing to work with me on that, I'm willing to show it to you, and you can make your mind up after that. And if they agree to that, then I can actually walk and talk them through a lived experience. Now, if I was to speak to another crowd, say a bunch of athletes, I would explain to them how the body has a ranking structure for blood. Certain parts of your body are more important than others. So, for example, your brain's pretty important. If that doesn't get enough blood, it'll send a signal to the rest of your body going, hey, I'm more important than the rest of you guys. It'll knock you out, make you horizontal, so it gets the blood because it's most important. Now, your lungs, again, a very important function. But unlike your brain, that's a massive muscle group. So when this thing gets fatigued, it can take up to 1/3 of your total blood volume away from your arms and legs. So this is where guys, younger, fitter, faster, stronger than I was, were always amazed that I could outlast them because I wasn't stronger than them. I wasn't fitter than them. I probably wasn't smarter, but I knew how the body's rank structure worked for blood, and my lungs were conditioned. So my arms and legs that weren't as strong as theirs had all my blood circulating where it's supposed to, whereas those guys were like, because their lungs had given away and it's just sucked up all the blood from their arms and legs. So you see how that works? So it's breathing really only becomes something people seek when they have either a performance standard they want to meet or a problem they want to fix. And, that's what happened to me. I had a problem I wanted to fix. So I discovered it in breathwork. And if someone just said, hey, you need to breathe better, I probably wouldn't be so responsive. But I wager, the conversation we're having right now, if I was to offer yourself and your listeners 3 breaths to completely relax everything, that might be of interest.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I was just about to say, I mean, if it's okay with you, for those that are new to breathwork, what sort of simple practice, can they actually start maybe right now when they're
Yeah.
watching this, or when they're in bed, that can help them improve their sleep?
Sure. Easy peasy. Now, the only thing about this one is just be in a safe environment. If you're going to choose to do this, if you're listening to this, be in a safe environment, either sitting in a chair, supported, or laying down. This is something that just needs your attention, because your oldest habit, like you mentioned, is our breathing. So to do something different with our breath can often be kind of strange. All right. So I like to ask 3 questions, because this might be for yourself and some of your listeners the very first full lung of air that they've had. Okay. And if you've been doing something inside of your body for however many years, the body can react kind of strangely to that. Okay. So all I'm gonna ask is 3 questions, and they're permission and invitation questions. So, Prosper and anyone listening to this, do you give your body full permission to be nourished fully by your own breath?
Well, yeah, I do.
Okay, great. Do you give your mind full permission to be fully nourished by your own breath?
I'd love that. Yes, let's do that.
Fantastic. Okay, do you give your unconscious mind full permission to be fully nourished by your very own breath?
All right. We're breathing
Right.
into the
So all we're doing is just removing those things, because breathwork is an act of receivership. We literally just let this in. Okay, this is a gift that's to be received. So those little permissions have now opened the gateways for us to actually discover this awesomeness underneath our own skin. So all we're going to do is just simply breathe in and out. Congratulations, you were conscious of your breathing. Okay, now what happens? People think mental health is mental health. No, it's physical disconnect. The more you're focused out there, the more disconnected from your own body you are. Till eventually people have the panic attacks. And what do they do when that happens? Okay, the breath is going, hey, we're back here. Come back to us. So you being aware of your own in and out breath is the first step to empowerment. But I'm going to help you juice that up. So what I'm going to get you to do is I'll give you a little demonstration first. You blow it out, shake it out, out, and then breathe in, and then breathe in more. Okay? So just blow it out, out, more. Then start breathing in, then breathe in more and more. Now hold it, wriggle your shoulders, relax everything, wriggle, and let it out with a sigh. Now, let the energy that breath created just go through your system. Energy has an intelligence all of its own. Some people, it relaxes their mind, their shoulders, their arms, whatever that is, just let that in. Okay, we're just starting to dip the toe into the power of your own lungs. All right, so you might have noticed when you're breathed in again and again, you opened up more room up here. So we're going to call that your secondary inhale. Your primary is where you breathe in, and when you breathe in again and again, that's your secondary. So I'm going to show you how to boost your secondary inhale using another thing that we have in our amazing bodies that we don't know is there. We have these power buttons in our 2 fingers and thumbs. Okay, and we're going to pinch them down really hard when we get to our secondary inhale. Okay, and just observe the impact of squeezing them really hard when you get to that secondary inhale. Cool. So have your power buttons ready. Blow everything out. Out. Blow it out, shake it out. Blow it out, shake it out. Blow it out, shake it out. Out. Start breathing in. Hit those power buttons. Like squeeze them really hard. Open it, hold it, shake it, relax everything, shake, push it down low, and then let it out. So we're going to try that again, because we've got to time the power buttons with our inhale. So we push them in as we and that'll draw more air. So it's a slight timing thing we need to do on here. So, but you push it down really hard and hold it there. The harder you press those power buttons, the more it's going to access your secondary inhale. And this time when we do it, we're actually going to look up and lean back, like we're going to almost lean back in our chair. All right. So I'll give you a little demonstration. Blow it out, shake, you get facing forward. Then we breathe in. We're going to hit the power buttons, raise our chin, and really draw it in and open everything up. Cool, cool?
Let's do
All right. So blow it out, shake it out. Blow it out, shake it out. Out, 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 out. Just feel for your power buttons. Feel them like they're ready. And then breathing in through your nose, looking up, hit your power buttons. Open, 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 open. Look back, lean back, look back, lean back. Feel it long. Now hold it. Now just open up that chest. Open up that chest. Wriggle your shoulders. Wriggle your shoulders. Feel that chest opening up. Feel that heart space opening up. And then when it feels good, let it out with a big sigh. Ah. Just let it integrate. Energy's got an intelligence of its own, wherever it is. You just got to let it in. Literally just let it in. This is your breath. You're completely safe. And if I was to ask you, Prosper, where do you feel that in your body?
It really is moving around, but especially in the heart set, like my heart set, like it's right there. Like I felt my chest opening, like there.
Yeah.
And it's
And
all
that
with
was
the
well. Like I said, I'm literally just dipping your toe into a very deep lake here. Um, I'm going to include a link for people because the thing about this one is you don't just get energy from more oxygen. You get energy from proper structure. Proper breathing gives you proper structure. And the way the body works on its energy is that, your brain's an electrical generator and it's got all these electrical cables called nerves running through your system. But they're not like solid cables. These things are more like garden hose pipes that are really spongy. So if you step on a garden hose or kink it, there's less water running through. So that's how power works through our body. So when we breathe and we align ourselves, we're literally taking the foot off the electrical hoses running through our whole body. Okay. And so this is why I call this breath the breath of possibility. Because when things feel impossible and I've got crap in my head, I've noticed my structure goes forward. Looks like I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders. And I'm manifesting that because I'm literally pinching off my energy supply. I'm blocking myself up and I can create a world that's terrible in this state. That things are impossible, because that's true. When I've only got 20% energy, everything is impossible. But when I got crap in my head and to breathe, I pinch these fingers. So this is, in public, I'll do this discreetly. I'll hold it, wriggle it, move it around, and then I get my sovereign power back. Because if I hold that tension, I can hold that tension, but at the end of the day, for some reason, I cannot not drink 6 beers. Because it's my body trying to self-regulate. I don't know how to do it myself, so I'll use something outside of me. So if you can train, if what I encourage people to do, and like I said, I'll include a link to the full thing. But if people can if they take away the one thing of a big, press your power buttons, if you've got any crap in your head that you want to interrupt or something's bothering you, snort it in, because what you're doing when you do a rapid inhale through your nose is you're pulling it over your sinuses and you're pulling it, as my coach says, straight through to your brain. Okay, more energy, more options, more structure, more energy. So you can be in a situation and you can have more energy, more options available to you within a few short breaths. And again, this is the amazing power of our lungs. And that was maybe 2 or 3 breaths. You got to experience something in 2 or 3 breaths. You know how many pills that are out there that you have to take for months to give you this state of balance and state of clarity? And it's kind of at this point, people start going, oh, crap, I never knew my body was made so amazingly,
You see, and thank you so much for sharing that with us, because if you really look at it, like if we take an instance of maybe a seed, when you put it in the ground, it doesn't need any other information except the information that's already inside of it. It doesn't go and borrow sugar so it can grow leaves. It just does. And that's exactly what also happens with us as human beings. We don't necessarily get any other information to grow except what other people, like you say, the externals, that then impart that because it's for their own benefit. Now, for those that are maybe looking to venture into this a little bit more, I know you want to say something. Where can they go, and what can they do? I notice you've got an app that guides
Oh
people.
no, look, that stuff's really easy. If you just go to your phone, put in 3 words, breathwork in bed, that's the app. You tell it when you want to sleep, when you want to wake up. Okay, it's the if you can change 2 things, 5 or 10 minutes of breathwork going to sleep, 5 or 10 minutes of breathwork waking up, like that is the greatest addition to your life. Everyone's trying to squeeze the juice out of conscious hours. If you can nourish yourself in your unconscious hours with this little bit of breath work that'll just fall out of your phone with these notifications, then that's going to be the universal lever that shifts everything else. Because, in the special forces, we knew nothing of the science of sleep, but we used to target our enemy's sleep because we knew if we could take it out for 3 nights, it would mess them up better than a bullet. They're just these walking zombies that don't know what the hell they're doing and believe anything. And when I ask people, you know, the quality of your sleep, the question I always ask is, how many times in the last fortnight did you wake up feeling energized and ready for the day? Because that's what a good night's sleep will do for you. That's the standard for good night's sleep. But imagine, like you said yourself, there's seeds inside of us. Imagine, okay, the image I had that you spoke about with those seeds of greatness are inside of us, but they're laying dormant, waiting for the right soil and the energy in the soil to be at a place where they can flourish. And so that's how I see humans. They've got these seeds of greatness, but it's just waiting for the right energy, the right seasons for it to come about. And what sleep will do is just quality sleep with breath work will do is just raise the energy in your system so these things start flourishing. So I don't get so much excited about giving people a good night's sleep. What excites me is what comes out of them that you never expected, all because you've actually put some structure in around the sovereignty of their sleep. If you want to destroy someone, destroy their sleep. If you want to build someone up, if you care about somebody, you would care about how they sleep. And I have not found, and as a guy who lost 6 years of his life to pills, I've not found an easier, more affordable, easily accessed way to do that than with your simple breath. But it does need to be guided, so that's why I've made the Breathwork in Bed app that guides you in these really pertinent moments.
But Tim, the best things in life are definitely for free then, because we just breathed for free. I had access to an off and off switch button that I never knew existed. And I didn't even have to go into some Amazon waiting or for payments of anything. It was just there, accessible right in front of me. Now, that being information and knowledge, what else don't we know that is holding us back, thinking that we need external things in
Sure,
order
sure. Well,
for
I
us?
I would love because I when people work with me, I take them through the performance through peace pyramid, right? And the top of the pyramid, everyone works on all the things they want to do, all the things they want to achieve, work hard to get there, right? But underneath that, there is a space of energy and self regeneration. And I've been the guy, ex fighter, ex special forces, all about performance, all that working the, what you want, getting closer to what you want, but unaware that if all you see is the top of the pyramid and what you want, then you'll start saying things like, oh, you peak at 30, you peak at 40, oh, you're definitely over the hill at 50. So the bottom of the pyramid, the rest, recovery, and peace and connection to self is the thing that actually drives the velocity with which you get what you really want. Now, the problem is most people don't know themselves. So the first process I go through in this, peace through performance, or performance through peace, is finding out who you are and what you really want. And I can do if you give me 5 minutes, I can do a very small gateway into that experience. So you and your listeners can get an idea of who you are. Does that work for you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I would
So
love
all
that.
we're going to do is we're going to take 10 breaths, 5 slow, 5 quickly, but it's going to be 100% through the nose. Now, why do we breathe through our nose? Because our body produces, well, there's a gas called nitric oxide. It's a key indicator for heart health, lung health, brain function, immune function, cardiovascular function. Okay. And you can, if you went to a chemist and said, hey, I want something that helps in all those areas, they'd probably sell you something that costs $150 every week. All right. But nitric oxide, we produce it ourselves, but we don't produce it when we're mouth breathing. We produce it when we're nasal breathing. Okay. So we're going to take 5 deep, slow breaths through our nose and 5 quick breaths. And when I say quick breaths, quick enough to look at my nostril, like, see how that sort of collapses down? So as much as I'm snorting, they collapse and it slows me breathing in. It's like, okay, you got that? So you're really trying to pull that air through those sinuses to produce that nitric oxide, the gas that then helps everything open up. And we're going to do that. We're going to feel the experience. Then I'm going to ask a really simple question, and we're just going to go through it together. All right. And this can be done with your eyes closed or open, preferably closed if you want to get a real feel for what it is to breathe. So when we breathe in, we're going to be raising our chin, looking up. And when we breathe out, we're going to be exhaling and looking to the floor. So your body is going to be going convex, concave. Okay, so we're going to use, and the angle of your face is often the angle of your sternum. So if you raise your chin, you'll raise your sternum and open all that up. Okay, so looking up, looking down will help you with the breathing. So again, in a safe place, no distractions. Be in a place where you can, if you have to press pause, this is well worthwhile. We're actually going to find out who you are as a person. This is the first part of this performance pyramid. So all I'm going to get you to do is breathe with me, blow it out, shake it out, blow it out, shake it out. Breathe in, and then just let it go. Face forward, just let it go, relax. So you're just working on the inhale. Breathe in, feel that breath lengthening, lengthen it, make it really long. And then just let it all go. Let it out, let it out, let it out. Let your head fall forward. Out, 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 out. Out more, out more, out more, out more. You'll be surprised how much you can exhale. And now breathing in. If you want, you can use your power buttons to help with that inhale. And then let it go. 2 more really slow ones with your power buttons ready. Breathing in. And then just gently let it go. Out, 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 out. Last one, really slow. Breathing in. Use your power buttons. And then just gently let it out. And just hold there for a second. Let your body feel what it needs to feel. You've given it permission to do its work. Now we're going to take 5 rapid ones where double the speed of the inhale, like so, and then when it comes out, we almost like we're trying to clear our throat, almost like we're kind of yawning. Okay, that's it. So the more noise you make, the better it is. When I'm working with high school students, I'll get them to have a towel and they'll. Okay, so if you've got a towel nearby and you want, that's a really good one. Okay, cool, cool. All right. So we're gonna breathe in and we're gonna rapid inhale and then a big yawn into your tissue, into your towel, into your hands. Cool, cool. You ready? Breathing in, yawn it out. Rapidly in. Hold it, wriggle it. Out. Third one, in. Open. Open your jaw, cover your mouth. Out. Two more, in. Open your jaw, let it all out. Out. Last one, all the way in. Hold it, and then just let it out really slow. And let that peace go through your whole system. Now, with your eyes closed, just put your hands on your knees and think of one thing that you're really grateful for. And when that one thing comes to you, push your thumb into your knee. When that thing that you're grateful for comes to you, push your thumb into your knee. And I want you to feel where you feel that gratitude for that one person, place, or thing. Where is it in your body? Okay, and I want you to breathe deeply into that place, like you can turn that place in your body into a set of lungs and you're breathing it, amplifying the gratitude. Notice how gratitude can be amplified when you breathe into it. All right. Now, with that thumb that you're driving into your knee, push that thumb into that place in your body. Wherever that place in your body was, push that thumb into that place, wherever that is. Okay? Great. Now we're going to double the enjoyment by pushing into that place and taking a few deep breaths. So breathe into it, enhance the energy. Feel how good it is to enhance your own energy by breathing into that specific place where you're so grateful, and then blow it out. Feel like you're breathing in connection and getting rid of anything that blocks you from enjoying that. Yeah, this is really real. Okay, we're really connecting with this. Okay, and just let that connection flood in. You've given yourself permission. You're completely safe. Breathe into it gently. Let those emotions fill and flood all those other parts. And notice how there's this big sort of waterfall effect of good energy when we breathe into that place and we just let it in. You know, breathe away anything that's stopping you, blocking you. You are naturally energetic. And just, you know, you might have to forgive yourself for blocking yourself from letting that goodness in. You know, I'm so sorry that I've been stopping this. I let it go now and I just let it in. And I just breathe into it. And notice how that connection to breath is well past the air and the lungs. It's an energetic field that you've just opened up and you've been welcomed into. You've dissolved anything that's been stopping you connecting to your own personal peace, your own personal power, your own personal nirvana. I mean, this is it, baby. And give yourself some credit, because what you've just experienced, a lot of people have searched their whole lives for, traveled, you know, across countries, taken all sorts of substances to have the connection that we had right then and there.
Thank you.
that sense of connection, the thing that we think that good car is going to give us. Nothing wrong with a good car, but we give this to ourselves. And that's you were very open to that, Prosper. I want to acknowledge you for going so deep into that.
How do I get back in the show now?
But this is what happens. You've actually discovered who you really are. Okay, and who we really are needs surprisingly little. If we know what we truly want, it's surprisingly how little we need. And you just gave yourself something that you gave yourself permission to receive something that was already inside of you. Okay, if this body is a radio and who we are is the signal, that action had you tune into something so deep and so true to you that are kind of beyond words. Okay, and trust me when I say, if we sat for an hour doing this, we would go places words would not describe. We just sat in that for less than 15 breaths. You know, this is where people start realizing how super powerful our bodies are made and how wonderful we really are.
Thank you so much. And obviously, I'm still trying to catch my breath here.
Yeah, and don't rush, because I know there's your brain is used to thinking, well, how do I deliver value? Here's how I deliver value. Okay, but consider this as a possibility. What if the best value you could add to somebody is connecting to your own authentic resonance and then just sharing space with them, and they feel safe, they feel held, they feel seen, they feel powerful.
If I could say anything, I mean, obviously, we did have a moment, and obviously, this is something that you offer your. But does this happen to everyone, or does this
Well,
maybe?
I usually sort of, when I'm working one on one, I'll sync up with a person, and it's just funny how the signals kind of align. My voice gets drawn to the words you need to hear because I'm over there with you and I'm tuning into what you see and you want. I actually had a completely different idea of where this was going, but when I sort of synced up with what was needed in your system, because the way it works is we're as powerful as we are connected, but there's things in us that we can't properly speak to. We, especially as men, there's things we want to say, but we can't say. And those unspoken words become like rocks around your heart. And when you dial into somebody, it's like it just seems to happen that you speak those words they can't speak, and those rocks around their heart where they can't feel, they get to feel again. And when their eyes are open, when their heart feelings are connected, things that were frozen start de-thawing. So when people cry, that's an emotion being taken out of the freezer and it's thawing out. It's condensating. Tears is condensation of stuck emotions that are frozen, that are de-thawing. And we don't know it, that if there's a part of us frozen, the rest of the body goes, okay, that part's frozen, we'll work to compensate it. We'll create a lifestyle that stops us feeling in that particular area. So, your tears tell me that you were able to bring out something that was potentially frozen that you were blocked off from and then reconnect to it. And I'm only guessing here, but that was a part of you that existed before you had a sentient mind or a speaking voice. And it's those sort of deep alignments that tell me we're connecting to something universal, something beyond us. Whether you want to say it's a spirit or God or that we're actually more than what we we're more than just physical. We're more than physical matter. What I'm trying to say here, Prosper, is done right. When you align with who you really are, it feels like coming home. You know, it feels like letting that family member into your life that was always there, wanting to give love. You know, so if it feels right, if it feels natural, if it's bringing more joy, more peace, more love into your life and into the lives of those around you, that kind of tells me there's something more than we can see going on. Because I've never done that journey before. Because, like I said, I genuinely had something else planned. But when I'm like, okay, we're moving into, and then that happened, right? And you could generate that in your own time. You know, this is a tool that you could do it, and just as easily I've done it with you. You're going to be able to do it with somebody else. You know, and like I said, this is just the sampler. You know, if you wanted to go for a swim, you know, there's it always gets better. You know, but the point is, you always feel safe, supported, seen, and powerful when you're lining up to that which you truly, truly are. And if there's a healer in that space, that's what they'll do. Their goal is to line you up with who you truly are.
Absolutely. And well, I can't thank you enough for that. And I'm going to ask the people that are watching right now, have you ever maybe tried breath work, maybe to improve your sleep or maybe reduce stress? I want you to share your experiences and questions in the comments below, because what I just experienced, I mean, obviously I'm a very, very spiritual person. And for me, it's one of those things, but I'd love to hear your stories and insights. Now, Tim, I can't thank you enough for the time that we spent today. And I think for the gift that you have given me. I mean, obviously on this show, we always have people coming and they take and want to promote what they're doing, but you left something here today. And for those that might need to explore this on their own, where else can they find you on the internet?
Well, look, I mean, Breathwork in Bed. There's all the socials. I don't think I'm doing anyone any favors, you know, putting more social junk mail out there. But you obviously have to have it as part of your business. But if I could, if people really want to tap into their breath, simplest thing is just look it up on your phone. Breathwork in Bed. You know, if you want to work with me, reach out via any of my socials. And what I will do though is I'll put in the show notes some accessible tools that they can use straight away. Like we only did half of that breath of possibility. There's another half that brings in the breath of peace as well. I'll give you a link to that so you can. And if that's all you take away, then that's going to be gold. I can't do what you do, but breath work is one of those things that if you improve it, they do what they do even better. And if you really say you care about somebody, you can't just be powerful and positive. You've got to be permanent. Like if you say it's one thing to be powerful and positive, but do you have an impact that will last tomorrow, next week, next year, next decade? And as far as I've experienced, if we can connect people into some things that their own body can do for them, they can access that permanently, after this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are industries that are benefiting from people being lifetime subscribers, in order for them to be doing have a happier existence. But obviously, what you've just given us, the tools, the on and off buttons and things of that nature, I'm probably going to be, waiting for the train later on, and I'll just switching myself on and on. And in the gym, I won't be looking out for whatever is happening. I'll just be obviously working on what I have. But thank you, Tim. Thank you so much. Your life story and your experience have got so much value for people that want to obviously be doing have a happier existence. And if breathing your stress away anytime and anywhere can be the thing that you need, I think you're just literally giving people back to themselves. So I can't appreciate you enough for, first of all, that experience, and then second of all, you being on the Online Prosperity Show.
So good being here, Prosper. Good to meet another kindred spirit. And I got a good feeling when people share sincerely and authentically. It's no matter what angle you look at it, people just get something from it, you know. And even if it's just the peace and safety they feel, and then their own mind can go, oh, who knew, you know. I got a really good feeling that this has created ripples on our timeline. And the great thing about this medium is it's digitized. So, you know, people could be watching this in 1,000 years' time. We're no longer here, but it's still creating. If there's humans, I've got to believe that, you know, this will be, you know, of benefit to them, regardless of, you know, timeline. So thank
Oh,
you is what I'm trying to say of being on here. Yeah.
oh, absolutely. I mean, if our great grandkids are watching in 2058, yeah, we used to have cameras and
Before they were implanted.
before they were implanted and things of that nature. But yeah, for those that are watching right now, I think obviously Team really exemplifies the transformation from turmoil to tranquility. And as you experienced, if you've watched up until now, I went through, you know, a treasure, a gift that Team actually allowed me to experience. And obviously, yes, like you said, it would be, unless somebody deletes the internet, this video will be out there for people to watch. And if you're watching, whatever year you're watching this, and just write that number down there, just so you know that we have created something that lasts a lifetime. And you know, you can tell that Team's journey really teaches us that sometimes the most profound solutions just lie within us. We didn't have to go anywhere. We didn't even need to buy or subscribe to anything. It's the tools that we have in our hands that can actually, you know, set us free, literally our breath. Now, if this episode resonated with you, I encourage you to share it with somebody who's seeking peace. They might have lost their job. They might have you know, gone through a divorce. They might be going through a war that they may not be able to tell anyone about. These 5 minutes of breath could actually be the liberation that they're looking for. And if somebody has shared this with you, the next time you see them, give them a hug, because that maybe they saw something in you that you can't see yourself. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to the Online Prosperity Show, where next episode, I've just been told by my team, we are going to be exploring ideas to cultivate a happier existence. Until then, I want you to take a deep breath and embrace the power within. Bye for now.